Greetings! In this video I'll be painting an Intercessor of the Brazen Annihilators chapter. I've printed both an Inferno pistol and a pauldron which I put the armorial on. Besides that, this is a standard Primaris Intercessor model. After I assembled the model I primed it black through my airbrush, though of course a black spray primer works equally as well. I began by using a large makeup brush to apply a base coat of Castellax bronze, going over the entire model including the Inferno pistol. After the first coat had dried, I went in with a coat of Sycorax bronze. This was applied over the more exposed bits, and the top of most surfaces as a highlight. Now onto the black for the undersuit, the weapons, and the armorial. I'm using the air version of Abaddon black here, mainly out of ease, as the air paints come pre-thinned and I can use them straight from the pot. Black Legion contrast paint works just as well, or you can use the base paint version of Abaddon black. I think it's just personal preference. To highlight the black I used Mechanicus standard grey on a small makeup brush. I find this much faster and the result is better than what I can currently do by hand. I brushed this softly over the weapon casings, trying to hit every edge. Now onto Ulthorn Grey for the white details. The Imperialis, the pauldron trims, the knees, the plate on the rear of the power pack, and the explosion design on the armorial were all painted with this colour. I think this part of the scheme looks pretty nice, definitely helping the chapter stand out against the others. Now for some decals. I used this transfer sheet from the Mighty Brush for the tactical marking, and some high gothic numerals from the old Space Marine Infantry transfer sheet. I applied the decals off screen using Microset and Microsol. You can check out one of my earlier videos if you want to see how I do it, but I should probably make a dedicated video at some point. But before I apply those decals, I made sure to put a gloss varnish over the white parts. This will help the decals stick. Now for the grey metal bits. I used Leadbelcher to paint the weapons, the power pack details, and the details around the armour like the nodules on the thighs and the tubes on the helmet. Next, I used Retributor armour for the gold details on the weapon. This consisted of the wing skull and the cartridges visible through the magazine window. I followed that with a highlight of Liberator gold, trying to hit the raised bits. I switched to Mephiston red for the wires on the back of the Inferno pistol, and for one of the wrist lights. These parts were highlighted with Evil Sunz Scarlet afterwards. The Brazen Annihilators used blue eye lenses, so I decided to try and make a rich blue recipe. I started with Alaitoc blue, doing 2 thin coats, then following with Hoeth blue on the raised bits. I painted the other light on the wrist in parallel here. For the final touch I used blue horror, doing a thin line along the middle of the eyes as a glow effect. Now for the leather. I used Rhinox hide and base coated the holster, pouch and belt. I thinned the paint a bit too much, so I went to the next step as I waited for it to dry. That next step was highlighting the silver. I used Runefang steel and ran the brush along most of the edges of the silver details to get a nice step up in the brightness. Moving back to the leather, I used Scrag Brown to apply an edge highlight, and as the paint started to dry on the brush I did a kind of dry brush over the smoother surfaces to get a more worn look. I repeated this process in smaller areas with Deathclaw Brown. Next I decided to experiment by adding heat haze to the barrel of the Inferno pistol. I've only done this with silver barrels before, so I winged this one. I started with Phoenician purple and painted up the muzzle to a point. I then went in with Caledor Sky, doing a smaller bit. Mephiston red followed in a small line, then Squig orange closest to the bronze colour. It's not great, but it looks alright from a distance. I then decided that the brass needed a bit more of a highlight, more than I had already done. I used Canoptek alloy for this, applying it along a number of edges, and also on the uppermost surfaces of the arms, helmet and pauldrons. I went back to Abaddon black for the end of the Inferno pistol's muzzle. I think this helps sell the effect. We're in the final stretches now. I applied a dark grey wash over the silver metallics and left it to dry for half an hour. An enamel pin wash was then applied. This drastically helps the white details stand out. As I moved down the body I noticed how clear the left knee pad was, and I quickly switched back to Mephiston red to paint in the third company marking. The Brazen Annihilators display their company markings on their left knee pad, in the Codex approved heraldry design. I went back to the enamel pin wash, and after I was happy with the result, I did my usual basing method and applied an ultramatte varnish to seal it all together. And here we have it, an Intercessor of the Brazen Annihilators 3rd Company. I first saw this marine in the 10th edition Space Marines Codex, and I liked the style and background information they provided. It has a nice metallic tan colour with a white trim that really stood out to me. Their armorial being an alternate fire support Codex marking with a skull on top was pretty cool to me. I love how I did the squad marking on the power pack here. I was inspired by the Necropolis Hawk scheme, which also do this. Maybe I should paint their chapter in the future. I think the eyes came out pretty nice. I was a bit worried when I applied the blue horror, but was pleasantly surprised afterwards. The blue eyes stand out nicely against the rest of the scheme. Other than that, I'm happy with this one. It's a subtle scheme, nothing about it jumps out at me, but that's maybe why I like it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I've got a few suggested chapters to work through now, which I'll get to as soon as I print out their armorials. Thanks for watching. I hope you stick around for the next one.